let's take out a piece of paper and do POD number 1. I still have your folders. We will be passing those back tomorrow. I'll explain what the grading scale was also. Tomorrow, if you would like to see your overall grade in the class, many people are concerned after seeing their grades on my last test. The first POD is, from where did your family immigrate? Now, immigrate is a word that we will be studying in the next chapter. You're effectively asking where they came from, other than here in the United States. Now, if you are 100% Native American, I can take that. However, the odds are that your family migrated somewhere, probably from Europe. However, as you're checking this is something that I need you to know by your next test. Your next test is a combined Chapter 19 and 20 test. So we will introduce a new chapter today and start with your history project, which will be due on October the 12th. Yes, number 1, you have to do it. And no, it's not extra credit. However, there are some ways that you may be able to add some extra points onto it. Several people after their test have asked how they can get extra credit. So this may be one avenue where you can earn a few extra points before October 14th, which is the end of the first quarter. So there are 4 options. Option number 1 is a family tree. This is by far the most popular option. If you have somebody in your family or you know a lot about your individual family history, this is the easiest option potentially. This is an example of what they call pedigree chart. This is also what they call genealogy. So if we're looking at this here, there would be 31. There's one down here at the bottom that you can't really see. So this is where you would go. This would be your mom and your dad, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, and your great-great-grandparents. 31 people all total. Another example of a pedigree chart, this is a fan chart. So this is where you would go again here, and then your parents would be here, your grandparents here, your great-grandparents, and your great-great-grandparents. Again, 31 names. If you could go to your grandma and say, hey grandma, who for your grandparents, that would be pretty simple. You would then be done. Now, if your grandma is like my grandma was, then it will take 35 minutes to have that conversation, as opposed to her just actually saying, yes, it was Sherry and Bob. So that is option number 1. This is the most popular option. Now again, not a lot of people, or not everybody, will be able to know those 31 people. So if you have no resources to find those people, please don't choose that option. The next option after the family tree is a timeline. It must cover 100 years of history, contain 20 big events about your family, so you can include lots of things here: births, marriages, departure from the armed services, deaths, etc. So this is just one I made very quickly. I have to divide it up and put 20 things on here. I've had people write this and they lose some points for the fact that it's very difficult to make it neat. I did have one person that made it into like a 6-foot long timeline. They did a pretty good job with it. Has to go back at least 100 years. So September 21st, 1912, my grandpa George was born. So fairly significant event. Probably wouldn't be here without him. Another significant family event happened June 6, 1944, the invasion of Normandy, France, in D-Day. My uncle's brother, Leonard, was killed. So my grandpa, who was also a World War II veteran, uh, luckily my grandpa lived and Uncle Leonard died on the beaches of Normandy. So the 1912 was when he was born, so that's going to get me 104 years of history. You have to have 100 to get full credit, and then 20 events. So pretty simple to make this. Put a line above, put a line below, and this could be a source of finding decent information. You could put when they were born. You could put when they passed away. And again, I maybe said to your class yesterday, don't wait till the night before to have to go through a cemetery to find out from tombstones what happened. Uh, the next option is a video. This is actually option number 4 on your rubric. Your video history could be a screencast, which is what I'm effectively doing today. So this is a PowerPoint if you want to just zoom in on some pictures, or if you just want to highlight some pictures. We could do that. I'll be working on an option that I will make as kind of an example before October the 12th if you would like to use that. There are several options on YouTube. There are programs out there that are free that make pictures kind of zoom in and out. It looks like something that, I don't know, ABC or somebody like that would do. Kind of makes it look pretty neat. The minimum length of this is 1.5 minutes. And you can identify key family members here, tracing back your family's history as far back as you can go. Probably the neater stuff happens, the way back stuff. So whatever you can dig up about your family. Now, again, if you can't dig up that much about your family, you can still utilize this option by simply just doing what you can do. So if you don't have to tell me all your family dirt. It wouldn't be your family if there weren't secrets. So just save some of that stuff for us. You can tell us about maybe your heritage. You can tell us where you got your information from, maybe what jobs they've done, where your family has moved to, and maybe why West Frankfort. That seems to be the question I ask many people when they do move into our district. We are glad to have you, but always wondering why you came. So, as you can look at family photos, that may be something you can add with this option. Put them in a PowerPoint. I can show you how to do this screencast, or choose a couple of options that are a little bit better than this, as you will keep people's attention a little bit more. iMovie is a pretty good does a pretty good job also, but I think you have to pay $3 for it. Also new photos. So again, if you to utilize this option, if you'd like to show off your technological savvy, you could do so even with new family members. There's not a minimum length on how far back you have to go. The last option, which is option number 3 for you, this one got out of order, I'm sorry, is an essay. It is a minimum of 15 sentences. It should include what you know about your family, even though it could be limited again. So you don't have to go back 100 years like you would on a timeline. You wouldn't have to know your great-great-grandparents. So an essay may be an option for you to get full credit on this family history project. Again, telling me what you know, maybe tell me where they immigrated from. You can tell me what family members did for a living. This is an empty canvas for you, just as long as it's based on your family. We can take that. So the last thing is, and maybe what traditions you keep in your family because of cultural ties to your home country. We have a big St. Patrick's Day sing-along as a Hopkins family because we are Irish and maybe proud of our heritage. Maybe it's just an excuse to get together. I don't know. However, that's something that we've done for years and years. We've always kind of celebrated that. So if that would be something that you would, your family would do something along those lines, that would be an interesting story that you could tell, either through the essay option or the option on your the video. Now you can present these to the class for extra credit, and I would recommend many people use this option because again they've asked for extra credit, and I have trouble if you don't do your regular credit giving you extra credit. So this may be one of the few opportunities that you do have a shot at getting a few of these points back, since we didn't do very well on our test yesterday. Okay, so I will take any questions that you have tomorrow. Be thinking about that and don't wait till the last minute, because October will be kicked off this weekend. So it's due on the 12th, which gives you kind of 3 weeks to look it over and get it done. The next thing I need you to do is to open your books today. And open those books to page 554 and 555. So we will very quickly try to introduce Chapter 19, which is the growth of industry. We'll see a couple of innovations in history in this chapter, and within a generation, we'll see people who potentially were born in near the turn of the century. And as they were born in the 1870s, they now potentially have, in their lifetime, seen the invention of the telephone, the invention of the light bulb, electricity, and in 1903, flight. So times are changing very quickly inside the United States, and that makes this chapter a lot more interesting than the last chapter, although we know we love us some buffalo in the 8th grade. It's an epidemic. But the inventions and all the inventors, all the patents that were issued, guaranteeing their rights to use those inventions, were very impressive from this country. So very quickly, from 1865 to 1914, this encompasses a little bit of length, and like I said, our next test will be that week of October the 10th, along with the same week that your family history project is due, and it will be combined over Chapter 19 and 20. 20 is about coming to America, and 19 is about inventions. Some of those go hand in hand. So it starts off in 1865 and kind of goes through further into history than what we've been so far. So the first major completion, speaking of industrial expansion, moving out west, 1869, May 10th, Promontory Point, Utah. This is the Golden Spike, and I think we maybe brushed over that, but the governor of the Utah Territory actually drove in a golden spike to put the last piece of railroad track, attach it to a tie, and this is where everybody kind of cheered. And that part was on your test, so you probably remember that. But Leland Stanford was the guy that did this, and can you believe it? Somebody stole this golden spike. Whoops. In 1870, Rockefeller, John D. Rockefeller, pictured above here, organizes a company called Standard Oil. They are going to be the colossus and one of the major manufacturers, refiners of oil in the country. We will look at John D. Rockefeller as kind of the model of every business and every company. We call him kind of the monopoly guy, because he was able to take control of the oil and the manufacturers, and he controlled everything. Remember, it's 1870, so you're not using oil for your car right now. So what kinds of things would you use oil for? That's right, lighting up your house. So That was it. As opposed to greasing wagon wheels, oil, as soon as we discovered it, probably by accident, wasn't as useful as what we have for it today. Without it, we can't live. We use 20 million barrels of oil a day, and oil per barrel is around $60. So we have to pay a lot of money for this oil that we cannot produce enough of it in the United States alone. 1876, Alexander Graham Bell patents the telephone. Now, patent, again, is a new vocabulary word for the chapter. It just means that they put a secure lock on it, so they get the rights to producing the telephone. So 1876, the centennial year, we have a way to communicate across the country. So how did we communicate before the telephone? Good job. You're right. Letters and Morse code. So we'll talk about that tomorrow and a little bit more today. But the next invention revolutionized America in 1869. The Wizard of Menlo Park. His name was Thomas Edison. He invented this strange crystal ball creature-ish kind of thing right here. And he dubbed it the light bulb. Now again, there may have been somebody around the world that maybe had the same idea, but we give credit to Alexander Graham Bell and we give credit to Thomas Edison. Very American of us. So we'll look a little bit about lights here, and the electricity that they generate between a filament here. These are the old style of light bulbs. These are ultra old. But before light or electric light, people actually ran gas piping into their house and had a gas lamp, probably where you would put a light bulb in the middle of a room. We'll look at how immigrants they were able to just pay with a quarter and have light for a couple of days or maybe even a week with a quarter's worth of gas. 1886, we have trade unions formed, the AFL, the American Federation of Labor, not the American Football League. We'll kind of skip some world history events right now so I can have you do what you need to be doing in my class today. On the next page, the Sherman Antitrust Act is passed in 1890. This again is a way to regulate businesses and regulate trusts. Trusts were huge corporations that not only encompassed one business, but encompassed several different businesses. Working together, they made it very difficult for the average American to pay for their products. In world history, at the bottom, we see Marconi sends first radio signals, and the Lumiere brothers introduce motion pictures. We'll kind of look down at the breakdown of how those things were possible. It wasn't until the 1930s that they were able to actually broadcast signals via television. 1896, Ford built their first automobile. Now, he did not invent the automobile. However, he revolutionized its affordability, and we'll discuss that later in the timeline. In 1903, another miracle of the day, the Wright brothers magically fly a motorized plane. The original motorized plane was flown at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, but in 1903 they figured out how to get enough lift and get off the ground. So the Wright brothers invented flight. So like we said, from 1876 to 1903, we have a very different atmosphere to be growing up in. We could almost draw lines today and compare, which I may have you do for your test. If you compared the technology of today than the technology of yesterday when we were in high school or when I was in high school, if you wanted to listen to music while you're running, you had to carry a big, huge, clunky thing. And a very famous inventor, Steve Jobs, somebody brought up his name yesterday, invented the I everything, the I universe. So forward-thinking inventors are actually around today. Not all of them go on Shark Tank, and some of them go unnoticed. However, these inventors, Thomas Edison, Alexander Graham Bell, and the Wright brothers, they are very instrumental in this chapter, and that's what makes this chapter kind of neat. We'll experiment with some of these inventions. Finally, in 1908, Ford introduces the Model T, and this is why Ford becomes famous, because the Model T was going to be made very quickly. It was going to be mass produced on an assembly line, and he was kind of the first to pioneer that. He didn't invent the assembly line, but he decided that if everybody does a very small part instead of making a car from scratch, if they just put on wheels all day, by the 10th wheel, they're going to be pretty efficient at putting on wheels. So they moved a car on kind of a conveyor belt, and they used pulleys and chains and hoists to haul the heavy pieces in while it's moving. And every 12 seconds, one of these Model Ts would come off the line. Now, it doesn't mean they make it all in 12 seconds, but as they start with hundreds of cars on the assembly line, they have thousands of workers doing most of these jobs by hand. It was pretty amazing. Ford said you could buy a Model T in any color you wanted as long as it was black. And it was a car which anyone could afford to buy, which anyone could keep in repair, and which you could drive almost anywhere. And that was especially problematic in this chapter because we had cars before we had concrete or asphalt. So we're mostly driving on, like if you've been north of the square in Marion, lots of brick paved streets. Probably in West Frankfort, you're going to see a lot of dirt. If you happen to look in some alleys, though, we do have a lot of brick underneath the asphalt that we have above it. So back in the day, when we were a coal mining industry and a coal mining powerhouse, we had some of the fancy stuff with the big fancy brick buildings. Many of these brick buildings were built in this chapter or during this chapter's time period. So if you go up and down the streets of Main Street, and you can imagine what life was like, we had 2 movie theaters at one time, and all those brick buildings, which were probably being built almost 100 years ago, lined our streets, and we were booming. So, with that in mind, today I need you to turn the page. You have the rest of the hour to finish the assignment on the back of your rubric for your project. This starts on page 556 and ends on page 559. It's talking about railroads again, as railroad was the #1 business of the day. So you have the rest of class to finish, write as crisply as you can. Many of the blanks are small, so if you can get the answers down for me in an efficient way, read through the section, and then answer the questions, you will be prepared more for your test this time than hopefully you were last time. You have to learn a little bit at a time. You just can't cram the night before the test. So, based on that, I will be back tomorrow. We'll pass back folders. We'll do all the little stuff. Maybe I can show you your overall grade. So, finish your homework assignment. If you don't get it done, it is homework. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.